Hello, and thanks for checking out another podcast here with yourlocalnote.com. I'm RJ. Mike, of course, is with me. And the featured podcast for this week is Mike Weyrauch. He's from Dover, Delaware, but he plays a lot of different areas, or I should say, a lot of different places here in the Philadelphia area, so the name should be pretty familiar. So we're going to talk with him in just a few minutes, but just want to remind you that we have a new podcast every single week. We are streaming 24/7. We got free apps. Just go to the respective stores and type in YLN, download it for free, and you can take yourlocalnote.com with you anywhere you go, and you can listen to the best Philadelphia music here on yourlocalnote.com. A weekly newsletter that you can get by just emailing us at contact@yourlocalnote.com. And also, we've got Mike and I do a little weekly update. It's the YLN update. You can check that out. That's only about 5 or 6 minutes long, and we tell you exactly what's happening as far as the latest news as far as music is concerned in the Philadelphia area. All right, coming up next, we got Mike Weyrauch. We're going to start off with his song, We Were Closer, on yourlocalnote.com.
Down to the bone, but I know something's amazing about you, the way you look at me and smile, and I hope you're feeling crazy about me, the way I know you feel inside. I still wish we were closer.
The song is called We Were Closer, and that's Mike Weyrauch. He's a Dover, Delaware singer-songwriter, and he's got an album came out last summer called Meaning Behind the Sessions. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for letting me be here.
All right, let's talk about how you, we'll talk about how you got into the music scene, and then we'll talk about the song We Were Closer. So let's start off with your history. How did you start with music? What influenced you? When was the time that you said, you know what, this is what I want to do?
Well, I mean, I've been into music my entire life. I remember, I was actually thinking about this on the way up here. I remember specifically once I started getting into music, I really, I remember being outside and my dad had a Pink Floyd album on.
Okay.
And I remember listening to Money and being like, asking him, what's that all about? And ever since then, I've been a huge Pink Floyd fan of David Gilmour. A lot of my guitar style, I like to try and, you can see a lot of his influences with that blues chromatic kind of stuff. But I've always been into music. I started really listening to jam bands when I was back in high school and stuff, and then, went into a little bit more alternative rock and roll, and then I started discovering, more jazz. And, if you listen to, my iTunes or, anything that I have, on my iPod or, iPad or anything like that, I mean, it can go from, Johnny Lee Hooker to Evanescence to Fish to Eminem. I mean, it's all over the place. And,
depends on what kind of mood you're in.
and I think that's the best way to go. But I mean, I've been playing live now for probably about 7 years. I started playing live weekly in college my senior year at the Trap Tavern. Every Thursday, we always used to go up there and have a great time doing that kind of stuff. But over the years, I started developing more of, writing my own songs, and actually had the opportunity to go out and record with a buddy of mine down in his basement. And, ever since then, it's kind of just been, more and more of a passion of mine. And, in my spare time, it's what I do. I mean, my summers off and stuff like that, being as, as a teacher and all that. And it's just, I get a lot of joy out of playing music for people, but not even just only my music, but, playing covers and doing, my own interpretations of those types of things, and just making sure that people are always having a great time when they're out, at shows. And
have you always been a solo artist?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, back in high school, I had a band, with some of my best friends and my brother, and we dabbled and did some things here and there, but it's always been one of those things where I've always been so busy that it makes life a lot easier to for me to just get my guitar. I have it set up. I have my acoustic guitar. I have my whole setup where, I have a loop station. So it allows me to do some different things and some different solos instead of just singing and, playing rhythm the whole time. So,
right.
And, hopefully one of these days I'll actually be able to get back into a band. I would really like to. I think there's a lot more opportunity with things to do. And, but, right now it really hasn't come to fruition.
So a lot of it is just convenience.
Yeah, I think it's convenience, but it's also, I think that if I was in a different location, maybe if I was actually living in Philadelphia, I think I'd definitely have a band.
Okay.
I think in terms of just chemistry and finding a lot of different people.
When you first started out in college playing shows, was there a period of time where you had to get used to the stage, or?
Oh God, yeah. I remember. It's funny because. It's one of those things that you ultimately learn it. I never was really an extrovert kind of person. I mean, I was always kind of, I do my thing, played a lot of sports, I just go on with my business. But, being up there and, and playing, and once you start realizing that people are enjoying it, especially when, you're sitting down playing guitar with your buddies at college, they're going crazy because it's college. And,
right.
But then once you go to, you start playing live and you start playing, start stepping outside the box and playing
for strangers.
Yes. And they're not necessarily clapping after every song. You start to clam up a little bit, but then once you clam up, you start playing even worse.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of learn how to deal with it.
That, yeah.
And it was funny because I remember the one day I'd played at the Trap Tavern, my senior year, and I remember I played up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and a guy that lived down in Limerick had seen me there, and he saw me up in Bloomsburg, came up to me afterwards, he's like, I used to love coming out in here, listen to you play and all that kind of stuff. He's like, and I noticed that, not a lot of people were clapping, but people were listening. And ever since then, I was always kind of like, oh, okay, all right, so just go out and do it, and, and then you realize that a lot of the times that people aren't necessarily there for you if it's not like a venue or anything like that, if you're just playing like a bar.
Right.
And, that changes the whole mentality. It changed the whole mentality for me, just being able to relax and just have just a much better time doing it. And, I think it translates through with better quality.
Yeah, and some people watching the show, too, are introverts themselves and probably wouldn't even come up to you. Even if they thought you did a great job and they liked your music, they probably wouldn't come up to you anyways.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because you have some of the people who you wish would take some steps back and maybe take some notes from the introverts. Yeah, but
especially at a bar.
Especially at a bar after a couple of, hey man, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's I mean it's I love that aspect of it too, is being able to meet, you know, a lot of new people, and you know, especially when you play with different bands on the same bill, you know, that aren't necessarily the same type of music as you, and you know, you almost kind of have converts, or you know, you have people who wouldn't necessarily listen to it, who've kind of taken it on. So, well,
I think people are more sophisticated, especially the younger listeners. They're more sophisticated because they're growing up with a lot of different music. It's not like it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, where, you know, there was just a few places to get music. Now you can get it all different places, and they're experimenting with the different genres, which I think is beneficial. Why don't we go back to the song "We Were Closer," and let's talk about the song itself and what it's about, and just the process of putting that song together.
You know, it's funny because people ask me about my writing process, and there is no rhyme or reason behind it. You know, a lot of what I've done now is I'll put my iPad out and I'll come up with, you know, a lick, or, you know, I'll come up with a riff, and then I'll just kind of freestyle lyrics, and then from there I'll kind of go back and develop it, and, you know, develop it. But "We Were Closer" is it's a song just about being apart from somebody. I was in a relationship with a girl who had just moved to Chicago, and it was just one of those things where, you know, I don't necessarily know how to express myself any other way besides music, and, you know, lyrically that way. And one of the awesome elements about that song was in the studio. I mean, it's a pretty basic, nothing too fancy in terms of just just being basic chords. But you know, one of the producers in the studio that I was at, Mark, he was a phenomenal harmonica player, and I'm not a very phenomenal harmonica player. And I was sitting there the one day, I was like, I really want to add this into the track. And, you know, laying down the harmonica into it, I think it just brought a whole new element to the song. And I think it also kind of shows the different genres of music that I listen to. You know, a lot of people say that's more like a Johnny Cash type of track. Sure. Or, you know, something that, and it was a little bit, you know, not as hard rock kind of stuff that I sometimes tend to gravitate towards. So. Okay.
So when you're writing songs, though, do you have to pull from personal experience?
I always do. Okay. Always do. I always write what I know. And I think, you know, and it's funny because it seems like the only time I ever write is when I don't want to say emotional turmoil, but whenever there's something that kind of dramatic has happened throughout my life. I mean, I go through, it's funny because I go through, you know, these writing spells, which, you know, these writer's block, which everybody does. But then, like, you know, I'll pump out 6 or 7 songs that I like in 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's very cyclical, and again, there's really no rhyme or reason to it, but everything that I do write, I try to be as honest with the music that I put out. And it's so cool hearing people actually say that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's being able to relate with that. So.
All right, was that the type of way you wrote the next song we're going to play here is I Don't Quite Know? So is that the same sort of process?
It's pretty much, it's there. I think there's a lot of similarities in the way that I wrote those two songs. They're kind of the lovey-dovey songs that I wrote. And I actually remember sitting at my kitchen table writing that song, and I literally came up with a riff, and I improv the lyrics the whole way through. I went back and listened to it and, you know, watched it, and I said, I don't really think there's anything I want to change there. Okay. And I think, you know, and I enjoy when I'm able to write songs like that, just because it's you know, it is very, you know, pure, and is very me, and not to sound cliche or anything like that, but it's just it's something that does come from, you know, all my personal experiences in terms of you know, love and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So like gushy stuff.
The songs that you're hearing in this vidcast is they're all from his EP from last June called Meaning Behind the Sessions, and we're here with Mike Weyrauch, and the song is called I Don't Quite Know on yourlocalnote.com.
Nothing about my life and all the things that I've done, and all the places I've never been, and all the women I could have loved. What all does it mean? never quite knew anything. Now I'm here and I'm overwhelmed by a beautiful thing. I don't quite know what the future holds, or where we'll end up then. All I know is I'm okay being anywhere you are. Stop right there looking at me, giving me those pretty eyes. Don't know what I would do without them. I don't think I feel alive. The moment I saw you, the moment I met, the moment I heard your voice. Don't know what it is about you. I've never even had a choice. I don't quite know what the future holds, or where we'll end up then. The future is something I don't care about, as long as you're there. As long as you're there. Passed you on the street. Maybe it was in a dream. Wasn't sure what to do then. I wasn't certain of anything. Tripped over my words, spat on the sound, drew a little out my mouth. Got a little blood flowing through my veins. Now I can't live without you. Baby, you and me, something this world will envy for all time. Shakespeare had right about our love. The way you look into my eyes, I'm done. Oh, I don't quite know what the future holds, or where we'll end up then. The future is something I don't care about, as long as you're there. As long as you're there.
That is I Don't Quite Know, and he is Mike Weyrauch, and this is yourlocalnote.com. We were just talking about your songwriting beforehand, and basically when it hits you, and you can write a song. Do you think you write songs faster, or do they take a long time? Do you try to come back to certain songs?
To be honest with you, it depends on the actual song. Some songs I listen, I'll go through it once and I'll like it and I'll stick with it. But I've noticed that especially a lot of the stuff off my, the first album that I did a couple years ago with one of my buddies from home, is that now the more and more I play them, the more and more I've developed. I've added in things. I've added in little nuances here. And the more and more you play a song, the more and more it kind of can evolve. So, and I think there's certain songs that that can kind of naturally gravitate towards that change. But there's other songs that there's some songs that I don't do anything with them.
Yeah,
I don't really necessarily change them at all.
Even after recording, you're still gonna certain songs you can still adapt, or
yes, yeah, certain songs I will start to change because again, I play live all the time, and it's not that it gets boring because I love always playing my music, but it's more kind of like, okay, well, let me try this out. Maybe I can start doing this little thing here. Again, going back to the song "We Were Closer," I don't play the harmonica live along with the song, so I kind of had to figure out some filler. So I came up with a pretty standard guitar solo that would go in with more of the bridge into the chorus, where Mark would have done the actual harmonica solos themselves. So they can kind of evolve, and that's why I love writing music, because when it's yours, you can always kind of change it and adapt to it. So
when you're in one of those writer's block, is there anything that you try to do to change it, or is it you've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, nothing's coming, and then because something will start?
I'll change up what I'm listening to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll change up the music that I'm listening to. I mean, my go-to is jam music. I love listening to Fish and Mo and some of the Grateful Dead and things like that. But if I'm kind of in a writer's block, or if I'm kind of like, all right, let me change it up. So then I'll go listen to some Breaking Benjamin, or then I'll go listen to like Adele, or just something that's not even really close. And I feel like that allows me to kind of step outside the box and even just think differently. And even if it's I'm learning different songs, or I'm just like, let me try learning this one, and then like you pick up something, and then my guitar will be in drop D, and I'll be like, okay, well, let me try something with drop D. Right. So it helps to kind of get the creative juices flowing, and kind of gets that spark going. For me anyway. So
do you find it difficult sometimes to tap into the raw emotion that you had when you wrote the song, when you're actually performing that?
A couple songs, Silence is probably the most, it's probably the most emotional song that I put on the album, just in the sense that, it was one of those time periods where it just didn't seem like things were going right personally. And, every time I play it, I do still kind of get those, not the jitters, but more kind of less the goosebumps that kind of go along with kind of almost retelling the story of what I've actually written. So.
Now, when you're putting a song together, so far, and just in the short conversation we're having with you, it seems like the music comes first, then the lyrics. Is that the way you usually approach it?
I don't know. Okay. I mean, sometimes yes and sometimes no.
So will you sit down and write stuff down without music just to be?
Sometimes I will, yeah. But I've actually more initially that's what I used to do. Now it's more kind of I'm doing the things simultaneously. Like I'll focus on like a topic that I want to write about, whether it's happy, sad, angry, whatnot, and then I'll kind of go along with the music, and then I'll think of, okay, well, what chorus do I want, or what do I want to focus my words on, and then I'll kind of go from there. I mean, a lot of it again is more improv, and I'll go back and write over top of it. But some of it I'll go back into my notebook and be like, let me pick that one, and let me see what I can create out of it. So,
where did you record this album?
At my friend Andy Dotzel's Dot Spot Studios up in the Poconos, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. I actually recorded both the albums there. Recently, he's taken on some business partners, and they've got some different experiences, and it's always a great time going up there and working with Andy. It's a lot of creative things have kind of come out of that.
So you trust him with your music?
Yeah, then? I absolutely do. I've known Andy for a long time, and he's run sound for me a couple times. If he can make it out to the show, because he's busy himself, if he can make it out to the show, he'll help me out with sound, help me just talk about some certain things. He listens to me all the time. Every now and again I'll get a text message from him and be like, man, I'm really happy about the recording of so and so, and it sounds great, and really glad to be a part of it. So that makes things because the studio's tough. Studio is a tough place to be in. It's so daunting, and you wouldn't think that it would be an exhausting venture, but at the end of the day, after recording 2 or 3 songs and laying down a number of different tracks, it can get a little...
But as you're playing, you start to hear something, and you're like, okay, this is not quite it. Well, and you're looking for that perfection, and it can take hours to get what you want.
Especially vocally. I like to really get into my music. I really like to, get some emotion behind it, and sometimes your voice will crack and it'll be a great take, and you're like, I gotta go back and do it all over again. But no, and again, what I like about the studio too is the creative aspect of it. Some of the songs in the album, I also use. I mentioned before with the harmonica, but I've also been able to use like a classical guitar on a couple of the songs, and I think it really adds a different element to it. On Silence, the double, the double vocals on the chorus, which just completely expand the whole track. It really gives it something that I had never really thought of before. So,
since you mentioned Silence, we're going to play this next. Talk a little bit more about that song.
That is, I have to say that's my favorite song, probably that I've written. I came up with the guitar riff the one day, just sitting down, messing around, and again, just sitting on the iPad, just doing whatever. That one I wrote simultaneously. I wrote the chord progressions and the lyrics pretty much simultaneously, and then I went back and kind of did the guitar, because what I find myself doing is I don't have a lot of tracks that actually have a specific guitar riff. I have a couple of them. On my other album, the song "Tell Me" has a distinct guitar solo, and on this album, Silence is kind of the "Tell Me" of this album, in the sense that a lot went into it. Even talking with Andy, the mastering of the song was very. He took a long time to do it. I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
All right, we're hanging with Mike Weyrauch, and we're talking about his music. His latest EP was "Meaning Behind the Sessions." He released that back in June. The song that we're going to play now is called "Silence," and this is yourlocalnote.com.
My ignorant bliss and love claim that it would be worked on to prove you're worthy, to prove you change your ways. I should have known you'd only up and leave like you did that day, but I will go into the silence to never to pass into memory. Now I try and move on into the future world, not knowing who will fill this space. I hope to God and pray that I'll never feel again the way you made me die that day. But I will go into the silence to never ask of you again why it never turned out the way you'd like to pass into memory. Before you left, though you'll never give me what I seek, but now we'll go into the silence to never ask of you again why it never turned out the way you'd like to pass into memory.
The song is called Silence, and we're hanging with Mike Weyrauch, and that came from his latest EP that was released last June called Meaning Behind the Sessions. All right, so you've recorded 2 EPs now. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you've just stuck with EPs and not albums?
Well, I mean, I think it really just comes down to the amount of which I write. This EP actually, I actually left out 2 tracks that I had, I had recorded before. And I think it really came down to just it's still that creative element where I think something's missing and I kind of haven't found how I want to actually incorporate into those songs. I mean, being by myself and pretty much recording almost every aspect of an album, again, it becomes a little bit daunting, and there is some stagnation with how I actually want the song to finish, and having that creative element with the producers and having different people being able to do that, I think is one thing that those songs are missing. And I think ultimately, eventually, I would like to cut an entire album, but I also think about the way in which kind of just all the way in which the music industry goes, and a lot of the songs that I've noticed on entire albums, a lot of them they're junk. I mean, it's filler albums, and it's filler songs. I'm sorry, right, and again, like if I'm not wholeheartedly into what I've recorded, I don't want to put it on an album. I don't really necessarily want to sell it, and anything less than what I deem as perfection, or at least close to it.
Okay, between the first EP and the second EP, or I should say, how much of a different experience from the first EP to the second EP was there in the recording process?
It was actually pretty drastic. I mean, in terms of Dot Spot's production, even Andy's his gear and his knack for doing this, for recording and just every aspect that goes into it, because he was learning also.
Okay. I
mean, for my first time in the studio, he had done it a little bit, but not as much as he has at this point in time. And again, experience in music is, that's everything. And he also got a lot better equipment. Again, he brought in some other guys as business partners. They brought in some different things, not only just with the boards and, the effects processing and, just the microphones that they were using. And there's definitely a huge difference between the first album, just in terms of the quality and in terms of just the sound and just the second album, it sounds professional, and he did a really, really nice job on it. Nothing to say anything about the first album, but
right.
And we've had those conversations where we've talked about those things, and we've talked about maybe going back and re-recording some things, or having them remaster, and we'll look to that eventually. I just don't have the money to do it right now.
Yeah. That's always the key.
Yeah.
So, are there things that you, after recording your second EP, are you looking forward to trying different on your third?
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, I have 3 or 4 songs that I'm looking to record or even re-record to put on a third album, but that's probably another year or 2 down the road. The real difference between the first album and the second album is the first album was a consolidation of 4 or 5 years of writing music. I just really just started to write my own stuff. Really started thinking about doing more originals than covers in some aspects, and then like I mentioned earlier, just the creative spans that I've had. I mean, some of those songs took from the first album. It took 3 or 4 months just to come up with them and how I wanted to do it, and not even just the execution of it. But then, the second album, those songs came bam, bam, bam. I mean, 3 of them were written within 2 weeks, and then, a month later I had another one. And even, it was kind of funny. I have a song that I really want to record. It's called 2 Jokers and a King, that I'm really looking forward to recording and doing some things with it. I wrote it in like July, right after I had finished, the album, and I really would have liked to have put it on there. But even again, like I'm still figuring out exactly the way in which I want that song to ultimately be finished. So.
All right, where are some of the places people can find your music, your website, social media, things like that?
You can find me on Facebook, Mike Weyrauch, Weyrauch. You can find me on Reverb Nation, reverbnation.com/MikeWeyrauch. You can find me on YouTube. I got some videos. Again, type in the name again. Spotify, those types of places you can find the music itself. But the best place to go would be reverbnation.com. I always have, I update it pretty much every single day for the shows, and whenever I get one, it's confirmed, it's in there, it's on there. So
great. And you have any shows coming up?
The next show that's in the area is up at Homegrown Cafe in Newark on February 19th. I'm actually playing with another band, Captain Blues Bluegrass Band, and they're folk. They're fun. It's going to be a really good time. It's my first time at Homegrown, actually, so I'm excited about that. Also, I'll be playing in some places in Dover and heading down to DC. There's also up in Bear, Delaware's Aqua Soul, which would be February 21st. So Friday night, Aqua Soul is right outside of Newark and Bear, right on the marina. It's some good spots to go, and I'll have some CDs and stuff there, to give away. And you could also find the album on iTunes and all that kind of stuff too. So
nice. Do you still hit up open mic nights every now and then?
I haven't. One thing that it's kind of funny that I've been doing is, every now and again I'll hop into a karaoke contest just for. That's
not fair.
It's just fun to do because people are always like, go up there and do it. And the open mic things, at this point in time, the amount of shows that I have from now until the end of February, I have 7 shows, so it's pretty stacked up.
So you don't really need that.
So I don't really need to do that. And there are some places that I would like to sit in. I know they have the open mics up at the Dobbs, Legendary Dobbs, and those types of places. And hopefully maybe in the springtime I'll make my way up to a couple of those and be able to just to mingle with more of the local artists. We had talked about before. Sure. Being able to kind of collaborate with some of the local Philadelphia bands and such. So.
All right. Well, the last song we're going to play here, it's called "The Racing." Mm-hmm. So just tell us a little bit about what that's about. This one
is about just your mind moving a million times. Just not really knowing what to say. Clearly, I can't even say
right now.
And it's one of those things where this song was a cool song too, because it was one of those songs that, if you notice throughout it, there's a recall throughout the whole song, and it's like distorted and phased out, and it's entirely different really from anything that I've done. It's a little bit more upbeat in the sense of kind of more like acoustic rock, but we tried some different things, and I think this song is I like this song a lot because it's showing not only that I like to scream and project my voice in those and all that, but it's also that I'm thinking about those things in context of what is too much? Am I screaming too much? Or, how can we kind of differentiate this song from, other songs that are a little heavier that I've written before too. So, and this is another one that, it's kind of funny. Some of the people that I've spoke to, some of the fans, they said like they either love this song or they absolutely hate it. So it's and I kind of like that element of it. I like that element of it. So it's not like, oh yeah, it's great. It's great. It's like, I didn't like that one, or like, oh, I think it's awesome. So it's neat, and it's cool to have that reaction. It's cool to have that.
Does it make you want to change it up a little bit?
No, I don't want to change it. I don't. I really don't want to change it at all.
All right, very cool.
All right, Michael. Thanks so much for coming in and hanging out with us.
Yeah, I really had a great time. Thank you so much.
Good.
Excellent. All right, people out there, thanks for listening. I want to remind you we're going to have another YLN Vidcast next week, and also download our free mobile apps so you can stream YLN Radio wherever you're at, playing music from the Philadelphia area exclusively. Just search YLN at their respective stores. Check out the concert calendar. You can see Mike Weyrauch shows there. We're going to wrap it up with The Racing, which is off his latest EP called Meaning Behind the Sessions. This is Mike Weyrauch on yourlocalnote.com.
Racing through my heart, this blood is passing through my veins. Disconnected at the day, most of us live with pain. But you won't ever feel like I do. Read a dies. Symphony of damaged dreams, a eulogy of time.